Welcome to the Hamsey Analytics Daily Market Commentary. I'm Pablo Navarro. Today is Tuesday, September 4, 2012. For the market internals, the New York Stock Exchange Advanced Decline Differential closed at 513. Nasdaq Advanced Decline Differential closed at 542. There were 15 new 52-week highs for the S&P 500 and 5 new 52-week lows for the S&P 500. Very neutral action here on the market internals today. For the volatility, there were 248,000 contracts traded on the VIX today, with 42 million in total premiums paid. For the dollar-weighted put-call ratio in September, we saw 1.0, which is a very neutral reading, with 25% of the total premiums paid. For October, a 1 reading, which is neutral, with 23% of the total premiums paid. And in November, a 2.12, which is a bullish reading, with 17% of the total premiums paid. Here we have the daily chart for SPX. We have another flat day here, a little down, 1.64 for the day, and we closed at 1404.94. We continue to be on a pretty tight range here. We're gonna look at that in the 60-minute chart in a minute, but it's worth noting here, look at the Sigma channel with very tight here. We might be witnessing a breakout or breakdown here on the next couple of days, or maybe this week or next. I talked about that last week, and there was no momentum here on the upside after Friday's Ben Bernanke speech. And today basically we continue to be flat. This week we have Mario Draghi's statement on ECB, so that's going to be another important factor here, but again, not much going on the markets. We talked about here CI starting to go lower, and we continue to have a negative slope here on CI. CI clearly on the negative territory, CI diff, and the Sigma channel width here, it's completely flat here. We collapsed all the volatility we had here, and now we are on a very tight range. Now let's go to the 60-minute chart, and let's get some targets here. We've seen here very tight volatility around the 1400, 1410 level. Nothing happening in the markets, and we could see here that the levels we're looking at this week are gonna be weekly pivot. It's at 1406.50, and next we're looking at 1416. Those are gonna be the two targets here. And if we do break to the downside like we did on the close, you could see it here. We closed above weekly pivot. We're looking for 1397. That's gonna be our weekly support number 1. Below that, 1387. That's gonna be weekly support number 2. So we're looking at 1416, 1409.50, and below 1397, 1387. Very important levels here. These weekly levels usually work out very nicely. Today we had some kind of intraday actions. We opened, went fast lower, and then just bounced off here. We could see here we basically ended flat, a little down for the day, but nothing much happening. Pretty much what we had for the last couple of weeks. Some of intraday action, and that was it for the day, closing almost at the open. Now let's go for SPY to get some targets here. This week's targets for SPY are going to be weekly pivot right now at 141.14. Below that we're looking for 140.19 and 139.25. Those are going to be the important levels here to watch for SPY on the downside. If we could break that pivot line to the upside and confirm that, we're looking for 142.08 and 143.03. Those are the levels here we're watching on the 60-minute chart for very short-term trading. Maybe we want to get some up longer-term targets. This daily chart would be more or less useless. The volatility of the Sigma channels has compressed so much, but we could look at a positive 3 sigma of 142.92 and negative 3 sigma of 139.50. Pretty much in line with the levels we just talked about on the weekly support, pivot, and resistance. Let's go to the Qs. Here we have the Qs. This is the Nasdaq ETF, and we're above 0 sigma still. Very important here. and we're watching for 169. That's on the upside. If we do break the 0.6 to the downside, we're looking for 67. Those are gonna be the two targets here on the daily chart for the Qs. If we want to look at the support, pivot, and resistance, we were able to hold the weekly pivot here at 68.10, 68.08 was weekly pivot. If we get a bounce, maybe go back higher, we're looking for 68.70 and 69.28. Those are gonna be our two upside targets for the week. If we're gonna go lower, we maybe go and test the lows of the week. We made it today, of course. It's Tuesday, sorry, and it's 67.50, and below we're looking for 68.90, 66.90. Sorry. Let's go now to IWM. This is the Russell 2000 ETF, and we have quite a rally here, but then sold off in the afternoon. The important thing here to notice was the bounce. We were selling off at the morning, and you can see here how it bounced. We are clearly off resistance number 1. We broke that and confirmed a close above it, so we're looking for 82.75 and 83.55. Those are gonna be our upside targets. On the downside, we're looking for weekly pivot of 81.13. If we break and close below, maybe look for 80.30 and 79.51. This ETF has a very important pattern going in the daily chart. We're just gonna come and take a look here. We have been talking about this head and shoulders formation, inverse head and shoulders formation here, the head and the other shoulder. We talked about 82.50 being the very important level here. If we break that 82.50 to the upside, we might be looking for a highs of the year based on the inverse head and shoulders bottom information. Again, we're not still there, but we're pretty close, so I'll keep an eye on that 82.50, and we want to close above that, not just intraday, but close above that. That would be a very solid pattern here on the IWM or the Russell 2000 index. Keep an eye on that one. Now let's go back here and let's look at GLD. Here we have GLD pattern, 0.26 cents higher or 16.16%. We continue to be on the positive 1, positive 2 sigma channel. We talked about Friday's outside reversal day. You can see it here, very interesting, very solid pattern here after we talked of this breakout based on QE news that we got on the markets. Here we're looking for 166. That's gonna be our next upside target, 166. On the downside, we're gonna continue to look at the 200-day moving average of 159.76. Those are important levels here on the daily chart. If we go to the 60-minute chart to look at the weekly support, pivot, and resistance, we are gonna look at the 165.70 as resistance number 1. We break that, we're looking for 167.30. That's gonna be a little stretched out to the upside if we do get there. Remember that we're talking about a more than a positive 3 sigma on the daily if we do get to weekly resistance number 2. So let's target 165.70. On the downside, we're looking for 162.64. That's gonna be the weekly pivot, and a break below that would take us to 161. Remember, around here we have the 200-day moving average. We're gonna keep in mind that one also. Last chart we're gonna look at is VIX, and we're gonna look at the daily chart. Here we have the daily chart for the VIX. Basically, we could call it failing here at the 200 MA for the VIX. We have had quite a run here from the lows, and today we are basically failing at the 200 MA for the VIX. Important level, but the VIX moves very fast, so any bad news could take us pretty much clear directly to 22, 24. Keep an eye on those levels. We want to stay below the 200-day moving average for the market to continue its way higher. We have a special offer by TradeStation. Get your Hamsley Analytics proprietary indicators paid by TradeStation. Contact Active Traders office in Chicago, Peter Albino, at the number listed below. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.